Here is a screenshot of one of my recent games played in Legend. My opponent is fairly healthy at 27 health, and he has control of the board. He should be in a pretty good spot, right? Well, stick around to the end of the video to see what happens to him. Hello everyone, welcome to my Naga Demon Hunter tutorial. This deck is built around the one card Blindeye Sharpshooter. After you play a Naga, deal 2 damage to a random enemy and draw a spell, then switch. So the effect constantly switches back and forth between Naga and spell. In the middle here you can see the deck list that I'm playing, and you can see how well I did with the deck. I started playing this deck at Diamond 5 and managed to push to Legend, rank 4700. In total, I played 100 games and went 60 and 40 with it. On HS Replay, it's considered a Tier 2 deck. I would also like to mention that many of these cards are rotating in March of 2024, so if you craft these cards, just keep that in mind. To understand this deck, I have separated the cards into 3 categories. The first category is combo cards. These are the cards that you want to be playing with the Blindeye Sharpshooter to try to win the game. Of course, we have our cheap Nagas, which are Mistake, Vicious Slitherspear, and some of our more expensive Nagas that you can play in a pinch, Wayward Sage and Parched Desperado. Wayward Sage has the additional ability of reducing the cost of some of your cards, but more on that later. And on the bottom, you have your spells that either cost 0 or can be reduced to 0. So these are Dispose of Evidence, Predation, Momentum through Fel and Flames. And also coins. Laying the Nagas and the spells like this illustrates a key point that I want to make, which is that it is often harder to play Nagas than spells. Because the Nagas always cost at least 1 mana, while a lot of the spells are free, or can be free to play. Normally, during your combo turns, your Blindeye Sharpshooter will deal a lot of damage to the opposing hero, but usually it's not going to be enough to finish them off. And then the spells come into play, where you can give your hero a ton of attack and finish your opponent off. The second category is setup cards. These are cards that are going to make your combo turn stronger because it gives you either more mana to play with, or it makes your Nagas cheaper. The first one is Frequency Oscillator. This one is going to make the next mech you play cost 1 less. More specifically, it's going to make your Mistake cost 1 less. The second one is Greedy Partner, which gives you a coin. And this coin can give you an extra mana, and it can also double down as a spell you can use to activate your Blindeye Sharpshooter. The third one is Wayward Sage. This is a more difficult setup card to pull off because you need the Wayward Sage to be either on the left or right side of your hand, and you also need to make sure that the cards you're reducing are actually relevant. And finally, we have the board control cards. This deck has to wait before it does its combo, and while it's waiting, you have to make sure that you take control of the board so that you don't die. Vicious Slitherspear and Parched Desperado are cards that you can use to combo with, but these are also cards you can play on turn 1 and turn 2 to take control of a board. We also have the 2 legendaries which have this purpose. Felerin the Forgotten can give you a ton of value because it's a 3/3 body, and it gives you 2 very cheap outcast cards that you can play, which can give you rush minions or can draw you cards. It's a very good card. We also have Going Down Swinging, which is your only form of mass board removal. It gives your hero 2 attack and immune and attacks all enemy minions. So you'd want to play this with your hero power or the spells that give you attack like Dispose of Evidence and Momentum, or with Desperado. And then you can use this to clear your opponent's board, which is often necessary because if your opponent has too many minions on the board, your Sharpshooter is not going to hit face very often. Now that we understand the deck, let's talk about the mulligan. These are the 6 cards I've highlighted that you generally want to keep in your mulligan. First of all, Blindeye Sharpshooter is always a keep because you can't win without this card. I've also put the 2 setup cards, Frequency Oscillator and Greedy Partner, in this list because not only do they make your combo turns much stronger, they're minions on the board which you can use to trade with or hit the opponent with. Felerin the Forgotten is often a good keep because He can help you take control of the board and sometimes give you card draws. In the very best case scenario, Felerin the Forgotten will give you 0 cost Wayward Sages, which make your combo turns so strong. And finally, we have the card draws. You should always keep card draw in your opening hand because you want to be constantly trying to look for your combo pieces. Now that we've gone over what our deck is trying to do, let me go over some general tips. You want to take control of the board early. I have emphasized this a lot, but if you're just waiting for you to get enough mana to have a good combo turn, you might die to your opponent if they're playing an aggro deck. And if they're playing a control deck, you might give your opponent enough turn to put out big minions or to gain a lot of armor. So you want to take control of the board early to pressure your opponents, and then in the later turns you do your combo. Next tip I have is to get a feel for when you should start your combo. This is one that comes with experience, but you should always be roughly trying to estimate in your head how much damage you can do to your opponent and whether it's worth to start your combo now or to hold off for a turn. Now this is a tip that's very specific to the card Wayward Sage. It can be an extremely strong card if you use it properly and if you pay attention to what your hand looks like. Here's an example. Suppose you're ready to do the Sharpshooter combo this turn. Which Naga should you play after the Sharpshooter? Is it Wayward Sage, Vicious Slitherspear, or Mistake? The answer is, after playing the Blindeye Sharpshooter, you should play the Mistake. And that's because when you play the Sharpshooter and play the Mistake, you first draw a spell. And then if you play the coin after, you're going to draw a Naga. So then if you play the Wayward Sage, it will discount your Vicious Slitherspear and the Naga they just drew. So you're getting the full value of Wayward Sage during your combo turn. Next is a tip specific to through Fel and Flames. You want to use this spell often during your combo turns to get rid of health from your opponent's minions. And this is so that your opponent's minions won't absorb the Sharpshooter shots, and so the Sharpshooter will do more damage to your opponent's face. Next, you want to estimate how many Nagas you can play during a turn, because this will help you get a rough estimate on how much damage you can do. Every Naga you can play, you can follow up with a spell, and the Sharpshooter will do 2 shots or 4 damage. And then you can see how much damage you need to make up with the spells like Disposal of Evidence or Momentum to finish off your opponent. Next, you can sometimes do a double Sharpshooter combo, where you play Sharpshooter and then a second Sharpshooter. If you do this, make sure you always follow up with a spell. And the reason is because, as I said in the beginning of the video, spells are easier to play than Nagas. So if you play a spell right after playing both Sharpshooters, you will oftentimes do more damage. And also, don't be afraid to use some of your spells before your combo turns. If you can't survive before you do your combos, then there's no point in just saving the spells in your hand. You don't need to hoard everything. And finally, I would like to say that you should try to take risks and try to see what works and what doesn't, and this will help you improve with the deck in general. It might take several games for you to get good with this deck. And now, for a bonus clip, the Naga Demon Hunter Dream.